Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2014 Government Summit. I thank you all for being here with us today for this session, where we bring together experts from the financial industry and government officials and civil servants to exchange ideas on enhancing government services. Let me introduce myself first. I am Nadine Hani. I present the business news shows Al-Aswaq Al-Arabiya on Al-Arabiya news channel, and I will be your moderator for this, I hope, interactive discussion panel under the theme Banking on Customer Services, What Governments Can Learn from the Financial Sector. If you were here at the Government Summit last year, you would probably remember the vision outlined by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed to establish the UAE as a regional and international hub for government innovation. New digital technologies are enabling governments to radically transform their complex bureaucracy to become more agile, citizen-centric, and innovative. Citizens, on the other hand, expect government to provide services that use modern technology and that are as convenient and as accessible as services provided by banks, airlines, and hotels. Hence, the topic of this panel, which addresses the challenges faced by government to achieve high levels of efficiency in the delivery of its services. This session, therefore, draws on the experience and insights of world-renowned experts from the technology and banking sector to improve and deliver an efficient customer experience in government. We will tackle the key tools and tactics to gear organizational culture to the design and provision of effective customer experiences. So, in a nutshell, is it possible for government to deliver services as efficiently as banks and financial service providers do? And is it possible for governments to adopt a citizen-centric model similar to the customer-centric model of financial services? And what are the lessons to be learned from the technology transformation and innovation that has shaped today's banking and payment services? We will try to address all these questions and more with our esteemed panelists over the next hour. This session will be for 1 hour. It is my pleasure to welcome, in the order in which they are seated. Next to me here is Mr. Eraiqat, the CEO of ADCB, Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank from the UAE, and Mr. Gary Flood, President of Global Products and Solutions for MasterCard Worldwide from the United States. Before we start our discussion, I would like to point out that, of course, we will be speaking in English, as you would have noticed, but there is simultaneous translation, so you can pick up the translation kits on your seats if you prefer to listen to the Arabic version. Also, please prepare your questions. I would like you to ask your questions to our panelists, so I will be giving some time later on for Q&A. So please, if you can contribute also, that would be excellent. And I also urge you to join the discussion on social media. You can use the hashtag GovSummit, GovSummit, or in بالعربي hashtag القمة_الحكومية. There's also a survey on the website of the Government Summit, and please, we would appreciate it if you can log on and give us your opinion, answer the question on what can the government learn from banking services. على فكرة, my handle also on Twitter and Instagram is @Nadine_BN, NADINE_BN, so you can also contribute to the discussion. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Let's start with the simple question. Mr. Gary, I'll address it to you. It is the theme of this panel. Do you think that government services can be as efficient as services provided by the financial sector? And if yes, what needs to be changed in the way, the traditional way of providing services that the government does right now?
Yeah, I can, what I'll do is reflect back a little bit on MasterCard. When I think about MasterCard as an organization, it's been around for about 50 years. And it started as a not-for-profit company. And it IPO'd probably about 6 years ago. It went through a series of transitions to prepare itself for the position it's in today. So it's made a transition. So I don't see any reason why governments can't continue to make the transition they've already started to make. For us, consumer centricity is fundamental, understanding your stakeholder needs, and I think it's the same thing for governments. They're worried about what citizens need, how efficient they are at providing those services, what the best way is to get that done. So I feel technology on top of that provides an outstanding platform to actually get the job done.
Excellent. You mentioned basically the main points, I think, which are customer service, customer-centric model and technology, and we will be building on those thoughts a little bit later on. Mr. Ala, same question. You are heading a bank. Do you think that the government can be run like a bank and to be as effective as a bank, and what should be changed then in the current model?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The simple answer of the question is yes, governments can, and we have a live example with us, around us in today's summit, in the UAE government, and the way they have been able to focus around citizens or residents or their clients' needs and be able to deliver that centricity. Banks, some would argue, maybe are not the best example of customer service or customer experience, particularly post the global crisis in the past few years. And I will talk more in depth later about trust in banks and how important it is. However, I think governments have, especially in the UAE, have been able to raise the bar, give a run for the money for banks and other corporates in the way they deliver their services. So there has been, and we're witnessing rapid growth in that. I think the next level is not just we're very privileged to have the vision and the leadership that have actually pushed into the right direction. I think the next level within government services would be around, the whole theme of today's session is about customer centricity. How can we get these delivery models or service delivery models to integrate together? How can we use the technology, the face-to-face or the other channels to be fully integrated, grouped correctly, and to deliver the service to the individuals? So the answer is yes.
Okay, let's start with this idea of the customer-centric model. First, let us talk about your organizations, and then we will extrapolate that to talk about the government. Mr. Ala, you are at the head of a bank. So how difficult was it to basically make every employee in the bank understand how his approach should change to become customer-centric? And do you think you have been successful so far?
Thank you. I don't think anybody can claim absolute success in this. This is a journey. This is an evolving culture. It's an evolving journey. So you have to be very disciplined and pushing the service agenda across the whole organization. You cannot lose eye or focus for a single day or a single minute. Within ADCB, I'd like to share live examples we have today. What we call customer, we have a measure. It's a non-measure we borrowed, but it's a dream come true when you measure services. We call Net Promoter Score. We actually try to measure the highest level of satisfaction. Customer satisfaction itself is one thing, but customer advocacy is something even higher. When clients actually advocate your service to others, when clients would use more than a service that you offer, is the highest level, and we try to measure on that. We have today NPS scores embedded in the key performance indicators of every single employee in the bank, starting from myself, across the organization, across everybody, frontline, back office, every single person. A minimum weightage is 30% on the Net Promoter Score. These are real things, and you can't just say it in a meeting or send it in an email. It actually has to be relevant, and you have to measure people accordingly.
So, sorry, how do you measure the Net Promoter? What is the measure?
We have very scientific, very simple approach through obtaining feedback from clients, calling them immediately. It's not only the annual survey that is done independently that can give you a good understanding of how you performed over the last 12 months, but an immediate call, very focused, very simple, and through different channels to measure simple things. Are you satisfied? Are you likely to recommend this service to somebody else? Are you likely to use other service? Or are you not satisfied? Okay. So definitely have to measure that, and you have to act on it. We instituted, other than just the KPIs across the organization, we have a very important and high-level committee, I chair myself, about customer experience. Measure the data and actions and activities around customer experience. Okay. We do have a chief customer service officer in the bank with empowerments, with ability to go and cross through the silos. Yes, you have to have processes, and you have to have different businesses and different support functions doing different things. But also, you definitely need the ability to cut through all such silos and to deliver the experience. We also like to dwell on this point, and that creates the whole concept. In everything we do, we have to ask always what's in it for the client. The measure, yes, it's
I will get back to you
Okay.
on this one because banks have been really accused, not regionally, but internationally, they've been accused about putting sales targets ahead of the customer, but we will get back to that.
Sure.
Mr. Gary, definitely you are not a bank, you are a technology company, a global technology company in the payment services industry. So who are your customers, basically, and how much customer-centric do you consider your organization to be?
Yeah, we look at stakeholders across the payment system. So consumers are front and center, merchants are front and center, issuers, financial institutions, and governments. Those are the 4 stakeholder sets. And as we devise and develop products and solutions, we work our way through that stakeholder universe to make sure we're satisfying needs across that value chain. If you're missing something, you're not going to be successful. And if you're not successful, your consumer-centric approach, at the end of the day, you're not going to win. So we take stakeholder input and feedback front and center, and it's across all 4 stakeholder groups. We measure many things. We measure Net Promoter Score. We do it in about 25 to 27 markets around the world. Advocacy is a big word. So who's going to recommend, who's going to be pleased, how they feel about what you're doing for them, you get a sense. And for us, we kind of really get it down to transactions. People vote with their feet, right? So if they're satisfied with what you're doing, you're going to see it in transaction volumes. So that's a key KPI for us. How many times is that card being pulled out of the wallet? Is it a top of wallet kind of card? So across stakeholders, and for us as a technology company making payments happen, you can kind of metrically see it front and center day in and day out. So it makes the measurement aspect a little bit easier.
But how do you instill that culture in all the employees of the company? You are running the company with numbers of employees that are so great that it's very difficult to let everybody understand the message.
Really interesting subject for us. MasterCard's interesting, about 9,500 employees worldwide. So we can actually drive messages pretty deep into our culture, all right? I don't know if you've had the privilege of meeting our CEO, Ajay Banga. When he gets something in mind, we kind of work it real hard for him. And the consumer centricity has been something that we've been zeroing in on for a couple of years. We felt that we really had become a B2B, we transitioned from a B2B company to a B2B2C company. And if you don't understand the end user, you're not going to be very effective as a B2B company. The other thing that's actually been very interesting for us is the employee base that we have. If you're going to drive this culture through, your employee makeup has got to reflect the type of folks that you're trying to influence around the world. So about 3 years ago, millennials represented 5% of our employee base. Today, it's over a third. There's a reason for that. They're more accustomed to technology. They're more accustomed to innovation. They're comfortable trying new things out. Folks like me, it might take a little bit of time to get comfortable. So their purpose is to press us, to make us think very, very differently. And they come with a very much a consumer basis to the dialogue day in and day out. So it's transformation of an organization from a makeup, all right, and then making sure that you're driving it from the bottom in terms of what you want to get done. Consumer centricity. You mentioned the leadership of the company, the CEO. Do you think it should be a top-down approach, or how? How do you instill that culture? You know, for us, it is top-down. If you know Ajay's personality, he's very much going to say what's on his mind. He's going to motivate you to listen to what he has to say, which is a lot of fun because he's driving the company to get to a different place. If you sit and listen to our strategy and the work we take our board through, you really can't argue with the principles. You know, at the end of the day, if you provide solutions that are better than everybody else's by listening to consumers, listening to merchants, listening to issuers, financial institutions and governments, you're going to be in a much better place. People are going to line up to do business with you. So I think that's a great place to be. And when people see that success, it builds on. And it keeps motivating others to participate in the way you want them to participate.
So Gary, the obvious question after that would be, can governments adopt the same model? But let me hold that thought a little bit, because I want to follow up with Mr. Ala on the idea of the sales targets. I read an interview with the CEO of Metro Bank in the UK, and he said that, contrary to everyone else, we don't have sales targets for our front people, because if you want to sell, you will not put the customer first. So how do you strike that balance between achieving the monetary targets and basically achieving the customer satisfaction?
Absolutely, which is the balance we've been attempting, and I think every financial institution is attempting to strike. You have to have the conviction and the belief that if the customer is satisfied, there is a very direct and clear correlation with profitability. It will take time. It will take a lot of investment. It will take a lot of work and detailed work to build it, and it will take a cycle or two to demonstrate that this actually happens. But it is, and it is real, and we do have examples. I'll give you one simple example we face today. After a number of years of heavily investing into services and putting the customer first, if you look at it's public information, ADCB's customer deposit, and as at the end of 2013, 40% of those deposits were in current and savings accounts, which is far higher than many of our competitors or the average in the market. What does that tell you? Your clients, whether they're corporations or small businesses or individuals, are happy to keep some current accounts with you because they use your different services and they're not demanding interest rate. However, I think the very important point is banks have suffered a certain lack of trust, especially with the global crisis. And there is another conviction that the bank that is able to build trustworthiness and their brand is the bank that will be able to really do better on the long run. And this is customers, as Gary said, can vote with their feet, can walk away. So you definitely need to demonstrate and do the right thing by customers. Another example, to build that trust, a couple of years ago, we started something called free banking. You do not have to pay for your basic banking needs, like telex transfer, ATM, checkbook, minimum account balances. And until today, I still get the question, where is the catch? Banks do not have. However, with time, they can build that trust, and that trust can translate into serious monetary value.
Okay, I want to take from what you said the point that the customer can walk away. The problem with governments is that the citizen cannot walk away. So he has to deal with this government service regardless of whether he likes it or not. So why should, I'm just arguing, why should the government then adopt the citizen-centric approach? You have the bottom line at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think governments play a real important role. We probably have 50, 60 initiatives around the world today with governments. Many are focused on making governments more efficient, so that might be in the form of electronic payments, corporate cards, purchasing cards, virtual card numbers to enable more efficient settlement and distribution of payments. Others are more around making life easier for consumers, for businesses, enabling societies to develop. I think about some of the programs we've launched on benefit distribution in different parts of the world. And economically, you can talk about the savings that come from distribution of benefits in an efficient way, but there's nothing more satisfying than looking at a consumer who was kind of excluded from the financial world, but is now a participant as a result of digitizing benefits. All right, for me, that makes somebody proud to be part of a society, an economy, which is in the long term very, very good for governments. And I've watched it a number of times, and it's just very, very enjoyable. So I think there is a very big role to play, putting a bottom line aside.
And what if we want to talk practically? You described the customer-centric approach that you have. How can governments adopt that? How do you think they should start? And also, is it a top-down approach as well? Because we see that in the UAE, it's driven by the leadership.
I think it does have to be top-down to get things going. But I think culturally, I think the same thing we did can apply. The makeup of the people working for the government and their motivation is extremely important. All right, what is the beacon? We're 9,500 employees. We're smaller than every government, right? We're not that big. But getting everybody synchronized to understand what we're trying to get done and why we're trying to get it done, when you get close to that beacon, it's very, very powerful. So I think it's the same thing for governments. What are we actually trying to get done? What are the benefits for society? How do I participate? How is what I'm doing going to contribute to that end game and end result? And then it'll manifest itself as it's delivered. When people see it, they'll learn, and I'll tell you, what's happened with us, it snowballs, and it starts to build.
Ala, do you think that there are key takeaways that governments can get from the banking sector to apply. Especially that, I mean, banks, they have profit centers and cost centers, and it's easy to measure. Whereas in government, it's a bit more difficult. How can you measure that? And also the recruiting. Like when you recruit, you go for the highest, the person with the highest capabilities. Government has sometimes different considerations for recruitment. So also, how do you make sure that all your employees follow the same agenda?
I think it's all about the leadership and the focus and trying to embed that vision and that ambition within the organization, whether it's a government or a corporation. I don't think there are many differences there. Measures, financial reward is one measure, and yes, possibly easier to measure in a bank or a financial institution, but it remains one of the measures. There is the satisfaction. I do not think there is a government on earth that do not want their better life and well-being of their citizens or residents. So that is, again, common human approach. What do you measure? When you get a more satisfied clients or residents or citizens, you get better efficiency, you get better loyalty, you get much better stability in the government, and which really could affect the whole industry or the other sectors of the industry. In terms of recruitment, and yes, you can recruit, and you definitely need the minimum in terms of education or abilities and everything. But I have been following a very simple approach, and it's been working and works with a lot of people. We do it in the bank. You recruit for attitude, and then you train for the skills. That's what matters. And then you take it to the next level of rewarding for excellence. And I think it's very basic. It could work from the smallest organization to the biggest organization, as long as you are fair and consistent in it. It has to be clear, transparent, all the big buzzwords I'll repeat, but most importantly, you have to be consistent. Once you break the consistency, you break the trust, and then you have to start all over again.
Let's move on to technology, I think, because this is a key element in citizen satisfaction, because especially when the citizens of a certain country are as tech-savvy as they are in the UAE, let's say. So, Gary, you are in the technology business, of course. I understand that MasterCard is working on initiatives whereby people can use the national ID as a payment, as a credit, as a card, a payment card, to pay their government bills and also other initiatives as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It was interesting. This morning I was watching the news, listening to readouts from yesterday, and I wrote down a couple of points. One was the public-private partnership required to get things done. And we have a couple of examples of that. One is in Nigeria with the ID card, which basically is a national ID card, which can have up to 9 functionalities eventually on it, driver's license, social security number, tax ID. But it also is a prepaid MasterCard, which eventually benefits will get distributed to. It has biometrics, right, in terms of authentication, so it's safe and secure. But it's a program we've been working on for about 3.5 years. And I was talking to the team this morning. That program isn't happening without 20 to 25 other vendors participating. So it isn't something that's very, very easy to do. But when you get the public-private partnership working hand in glove, and you figure out what kind of technology and processors and program managers and companies you need to get something done, you organize it, you can get an awful lot of beautiful things done. So this program is imminent. You know, we expect about 13 million cards out in the first year on this program. The other one is SASA down in South Africa, where it was a benefit distribution program to a prepaid MasterCard. In that one, I think there's 10 million cards in 1 year. All right.
How does it work? What is benefit distribution? How do you do that?
Well, those would be if I'm entitled to government benefits, whether it's tuition, unemployment, things like that. Those are distributed electronically, so it's digitized. All right. So you get the money electronically on your prepaid card, and you'll be able to use the card automatically. Right. Previously, it was distribution of cash through a variety of mechanisms, which was completely inefficient. That particular program is going to save the government over time about $400 million. But the best part for me is it's enabling consumers, but it's also enabling merchants. So if you're distributing those benefits on a card, you also need the infrastructure from a merchant perspective, the point of sale capabilities, the acceptance infrastructure. So what that's doing is creating more of an inclusive ecosystem, not just on the consumer side, but also on the merchant side. So you get both benefits. And then economically, it develops over a little bit more time.
So let me understand that well. So you are saying that this national ID that we have, it could contain authentication and also the possibility to pay government bills through it and
Absolutely.
get benefits. And also, can it have I read something that can have the e-signature whereby you can use it for all the government services,
Sure.
for everything?
Yeah.
So it's like our credit card right now in a bank. We use it to identify ourselves, to do any transaction.
Yeah.
It'll be the same thing.
Same thing with the government.
I'd like to echo that, if I may. And I
course.
think we're very privileged in the UAE that different multiple identification and payment systems have been in place. Our Emirates ID card has been a big mega project, very successful one that today covers the UAE complete. However, over the years, there has been also other payment systems. In the social services, there has been the pensioners or those who qualify for service through a card or different payment. I think today what we are seeing, and we're very close, in a close working relationship, is trying to group all the identification part with the payment part under one card. Of course, you definitely need to use technology extensively and providers like MasterCard, but there is a serious amount, and we're actually piloting a number of these initiatives, particularly with the Emirates ID Authority.
Gary, just a question out of the top of my mind. I don't know if you can answer it. With the readiness of the UAE, do you think how many years would it take to apply such a program?
You know, I think it's will. If Nigeria is 3.5, 4 years, 5 years, you know, South Africa is probably a little bit quicker. I think the technology is in place. You know, I'm amazed. There's another program that we work on, the World Food Program. We basically digitize food aid, and the technology that's being deployed is technology that's been around for a while. The issue was you had partners that had never sat down in a room and thought about what kind of a solution can we create from what we have. All right, so when we got to the point where that was done, the ability to actually provide cards to folks recipients of the World Economic or the World Food Program, rather than dropping food, does the same thing. It enables consumer adoption, consumer inclusion, and then it creates an ecosystem around merchant development and merchant sales capability. So I actually don't think it'll take a ton of time, but if you have a multitude of government agencies, I'm sure there's a lot to work your way through.
Yeah.
But I think technology is there to actually make these things work and happen.
It takes us then to the trust issue, because people have to trust online services to use them. Now, as we said, in the UAE, the culture is already there, but I was looking at some statistics, Ala, I'd like to ask you. It shows, the statistics about the UAE show that 47% of UAE citizens use online banking, and they use it 1.7 times per month. So they check their balances, they do transactions 1.7 times on average, I'm saying. On the other hand, when you come to purchases online, like buying stuff, buying clothes, buying stuff online, 33% of those asked said that they do not use online purchases, and this is also, it's relevant for you, they do not use online purchases because of the lack of trust in online payments. So how do you evaluate the figures right now? Let's start with you, Ala. And do you think that, how can governments basically, I think that banks have already breached that trust issue, and people trust online services. How can governments reach a stage where their citizens trust that they can log on and their data is protected when they do government services online?
First, I'm very pleased to see the UAE figure. It gives me a lot of confidence also about the penetration and usages of ADCB clients. We are in excess of 70-odd% in terms of usage of online services. And now, of course, we're seeing a huge pickup with the application, the app on the smartphone. The trust issue comes from different angles, and I think the market and the users or the consumers are evolving much faster, and we're able today to provide services we never even dreamt it's possible, or at certain times we're inhibited by certain controls and certain security aspects. I think let me share again experiences. In the past, you used to get your PIN code or PIN to use on the internet separately by mail, or you have to go to a branch to get it, and the accessibility is not that easy. This has changed dramatically today. Banks who insist on getting these human interaction in the process cannot get the right penetration they want. Consumers want to be able to sign in, log in, and use the service on the spot, instantly. They do not want any other transaction. So this was a major learning. And once you resolve this issue, you get a much better penetration. Second, it has to be comprehensive. You have to have all the services being able to, all the humanly possible services to be put under one umbrella.
And this is convenience again.
Of course. Of course, you cannot expect different level of sign-ons and different authentications and different too many screens and so on. It has to be very, very simple. It has to be at par with even non-financial services that offers. And this is the challenge that will be for the government to do. It has also to be at the convenience of the client or the user itself. You cannot say this service is only available from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. or this service is only available.
Sorry, do you envisage then a future where I can log on to one website, government website, and finish everything that I have to do with the government online without going to Al Murur for my license renewal, without going to a different department every time?
I think that is the only direction government can, is grouping all of these services. The only separation need to be what is transactional, what is recurrent that you need to do, and what is consultative, and which banks have adopted this a while back. The only thing is banks have the advantage because everything is related to payments, so it's automatically grouped. Your loan, your car installment, your bills, and all of that is easier grouped. I think today the government is embarking on this challenge. I'm seeing it happening, and I think this is the real end result is one login, one sign-on, and you can do everything. But it doesn't stop there. This is, again, it's only about the transaction, the recurrent type. There are more things. There is, which banks started also to do. Every bank can get a technology and follow it, is understanding more and be able to predict
what the customer
wants.
Gary, there is the issue of data protection, especially when governments are involved, because like all our lives, the details of our lives will be with those government services. So the question is, what should governments do to make the consumer, the citizen, trust that his data is protected?
Yeah, I'll reflect just from payments industry, and maybe we can draw a parallel. You know, particularly today with all the data breaches and things that are going on in different parts of the world, the investments required and the diligence around making sure that data and information is secure is extremely important. I mean, we invest quite a bit each year to run our payment network around the world. We probably have 3,500 endpoints in different parts of the world deployed that talk to one another in different formats and things. In our technology investment, our cybersecurity investments, we're a very popular target, all right, to say the least. But we work day in and day out, you know, to make sure that what we do is top-notch, second to none. But as the industry unfolds, you know, we can look around and see that the migration to a chip environment is extremely important. If you read what's happened in the U.S. with data breaches in some of the retail locations, the fact that if a chip would have been deployed, all right, we have a mandate that by 2015, October 2015, that chip technology is deployed, and then we have liability shifts that basically move liability to the person who actually isn't doing as much to secure the environment.
So this is why banks are exchanging our credit cards now to ones with chips, basically.
Yeah, you know, yeah. So you want a chip environment, so it basically makes the information useless if somebody secures it. Okay. We also need to do more work. I mean, we've done a lot as an industry on merchant education and compliance with rules and policies that have been put in place at an industry level. Yet their investments in their point-of-sale infrastructure and technology infrastructures, you know, maybe it hasn't been as much as it needed to be in certain cases. So I think the chip technology is one. I also think then in the online world, which we were touching on a little bit, tokenization is a technology where there's a proxy for an actual credential or a card number. All right?
Sorry, can you repeat that idea, Gary? We couldn't hear you properly.
So tokenization is one where a proxy number is established through keys for your real number. All right, so when you go online and you shop, your real number would be converted into something different than your real number, okay, and flow this through the system. And with all the parameters around a particular transaction, it would be useless in another environment or at another time because it's been created just for that one instance.
Okay.
All right, so between those two types of technologies, all right, we feel like we're on a path. All right, now to deploy them and get them done is what is important. And I think, you know, the heightened issues around cybersecurity and security in general, I mean, the investments are required. So we're spending a lot of money on it, as are our customers around the world. And I think it's something we have to get done to make sure that trust and confidence remains part of the system, whether it's a payment system or provision of services by governments. Okay. Same thing.
To add the similarities, especially between banks and government entities, is around authentication. How do you ensure that the user is actually your client? It's not only on the payments, even in information. Today, the basic authentication that either with physical, face-to-face, or the alternative channels, banks and government employ is either the ID or the PIN number or some kind of card. In today's world, these are today the most vulnerable to actual penetration or fraudulent activities. So there is a move, and that's what we see through the Emirates ID, where actual some biometric informations are actually stored there, like thumbprint or face recognition. And we are experimenting with some other models and types of biometric. This will be the challenge, not only for banks, not only for governments, is about authentication for the services. Then comes all the cybersecurity issues that Gary spoke about, which is a serious and important and very high in the agenda of every provider of any kind of services, and it does require a serious investment going forward.
I still have two ideas to discuss, and then I want to open the floor to questions. So let's go over these. The first is innovation, because we all know that we cannot reach any level of what we spoke of before, of customer service, of technology without the needed innovation. Let's start with Gary, what you are doing. Basically, I understand that basically one of the targets of MasterCard is to transform the world from cash usage to a world without cash. So what are you doing in the innovation area there?
Well, innovation for us is fundamental to the transition, cultural transition for the company, as well as business models around the world. You know, there isn't one solution that works everywhere. So what we've had to do is open up our thinking dramatically. 3 years ago, we structured a group called MasterCard Labs. We took technologists out of different businesses we bought, we isolated them, and we let them run with ideas and concepts and let them develop certain things that we took through to incubations, and now we've commercialized a couple of them. One is Simplified Commerce, which is for merchants, to enable small merchants to conduct online commerce, all right? But culturally, that innovation, that laboratory structure is one that has changed the way we think as an organization. And it's opened up a tremendous amount of opportunity from other, both, I would say, governments as well as private companies interested in participating in what we're doing. Because in many cases, just like the Nigerian example, it doesn't happen unless you have 20, 25 partners in place helping you get something done. So culturally, innovation is front and center. Labs is something we have deployed in Ireland, Singapore, St. Louis. We have a couple of other locations in mind right now. And those locations are embedded in places where it's extremely difficult. So you might be looking at heavy cash environments, right? Where things like PayPass, for us, have provided great opportunity to convert cash transactions. So it's both part of the core curriculum, but I think Labs has done a wonderful job transitioning culture and putting us in a pretty good place to deal with the opportunities.
I guess on the innovation space, you have to talk about public-private partnerships so that government can attain that level of innovation in order to reach the ideal smart government.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I looked at what we do is connecting buyers and sellers better than anybody else in the world. I could say senders and receivers, too, for remittances and money transfer. I think the governments have got to take their approach to the same kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of overlap between what we do and what governments need to do, which is kind of represented by some of the examples we just talked about.
Ala, what are some of the initiatives? Where can banks help enable smart government?
I don't think it's about the technology. The technology is a medium. It's a borrowed medium. You can take it and build on it. But I believe where banks in general, and again, I'd like to take examples from ADCB, have succeeded, is with the processes behind this technology. How many steps the process will take within the bank or behind the scene or in the thinking about it to be able to give you the same consistent result with very little inconvenience to the clients. Today, within our payments, which is a lot of in excess of 7 million payments a year, few trillion dirhams of value, 85% of all payments within the bank are done with what we call straight-through processing, which means there is no human interaction for it. It starts from the client and it ends with the client. And this is not counting the ATM and credit card transactions, which by default, thanks to MasterCard, it is 100% straight-through processing. So I think where banks can really be helpful is how do you skip certain steps that reality are necessary, or if it is necessary, where do you manage the risk without complicating it to the client and makes the front technology as convenient and as easy as possible. And I think that a serious efforts have already taken place, and that could be very, very useful. Sometimes you need to decide not to do something with eyes wide open, knowing that the risk in that is so controlled and minimum versus the return of the customer convenience very high.
Okay. I will leave my last questions till the end. Let us open the floor to questions. So please, if you have a question for our panelists, give me a sign, and we will pass on a microphone. Please, I always ask you to introduce yourself and where you work as well. If we can pass on the microphone to the gentleman here. Okay. بس بدنا نوصل الميكروفون.
Khalid Ahmed, Economic Zones World. Just want to set a scenario and see the panelist's view. Is it possible for the government to disconnect delivery from regulation and hence deliver better? So example would be airlines, education, telecommunication, where the delivery and the regulations has been done by the government, and then the delivery was disconnected and the regulation was done by the government. And can I add just a couple of, for the MasterCard, Bitcoin, what does it mean and how is it going?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The Bitcoin. He's asking you about the Bitcoins. Where do you think
I think you got to ask them.
Bitcoin.
How's it going? So I guess do you want to answer the first?
No, go ahead.
I'll just Bitcoin. I guess we'll wait and see where it goes and what it does. I think for us, we have a currency and a product that works legally in about 16 countries and territories around the world, complies with all laws, and operates very, very efficiently. So from a Bitcoin perspective, I think we'll kind of have to see what happens and where it goes.
So you don't he is basically the question is, do you believe in that system of unregulated
oh no, absolutely
money?
not. If that's your question, no. When I think about know your customer, money laundering, all the wonderful things that we get to deal with in government and financial services, something like that, as anonymized as that is, kind of goes against the grain.
Okay.
And I don't quite understand.
Let's answer the first question. Basically separating regulation from delivery, whereas the government is the regulator and also the entity that delivers services.
Well, we definitely need regulations, for sure, in everything you do, particularly at the government level. And I do believe today the government have a certain level of that separation. I'm seeing it happening at a federal level in the UAE and at a local level in the UAE. So you have an authority for a certain affairs, like municipal affairs, and then you have the municipality. Or you have a certain authority for aviation regulation, and there is actually the civil aviation that actually deliver the services. How do you take this across the board? It's all about the process. It's all about the matrix and managing and controlling and regulating anything, whether it can be done through two separate entities or even within the same entity. I don't think the conflict of interest is really huge in government, and it can be well managed because both arms or both legs deliver or work for the same objective. So whether you do it through two separate, completely distinct and separated a regulator and a delivery channel, or even if it is one, because ultimately it's one, it's the government. Or if it is one and you manage that through a matrix and a proper process, I think it's achievable and could be achievable easier and with less pain if it was one.
Other questions? معلش خلينا نعطي حظ للبقية. Sorry? معلش لأنه we have to take other questions. Please, if we can pass on the microphone to the gentleman over there. فيك ترفع إيدك again. Okay, تفضل.
Omar from Ministry of Finance. I have two questions. First question, how do you measure the customer's needs and want smartly without asking them? Second question is how do you support the innovation and the research within the organization?
Okay.
Sorry, the
How do you
second
support
part?
innovation and research within
Okay,
an organization?
I like the first, I like both questions, and I think it's important. There are many mechanisms to measure the customer needs and requirements even without asking them. We're privileged in a bank, we get a 360-degree view of the customer. We know their gender, we know their nationality, we know their age, we know their income, their education level, their family size. And also we know their spending patterns. All what you need is to get these data in a meaningful data mining exercise and try to predict what really matters for them in spend. And here, we're very proud of having successfully being higher than the benchmark in terms of predicting the spend behavior or what actually matters to the clients. But also, there is no taking away from actually talking and asking your customers. Customers, from experience, love to be part of that journey.
But can governments do the same? I mean,
Of
asking
course.
the citizens.
I think government, first of all, have better data about their client, about their citizens and people. They can share that data or get it obtained also without divulging the privacy from different areas, and you can predict. Today, our government actually predict simple data things. I get an alert before my passport expires, or I get an alert a month before my Emirates ID expires. I think this is a great start of using this available data. So, but trust me, customers do love to give you feedback. I don't remember I've ever sat with a client without him voluntarily wanting to give me either a complaint or a positive feedback, which is very important. Institutionalizing that dialogue with clients is great. On governments, we have one of the greatest examples also in the UAE, and I think we don't even need to repeat it, is the brainstorming that was conducted before the cabinet offsite a couple of months ago by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid. Involved the whole community, everybody around in getting ideas and feedback regarding a couple of very important elements like healthcare and education. In the bank, how do you promote this innovation? We do actually have an innovation and idea lab. There where people actually sit together and discuss and brainstorm and get ideas from across the bank. We have awards for people who can give you, we have what we call an Afkar award, where it's open to every single employees to always keep giving ideas and ideas, whether it's a process or technology or whatever it is, just keeping it open and keep the flow open, because you need not only talk to your people, also talk to your staff. Staff are at the front and center with the customer contacts, and sometimes it's too late once you look at the data 2 or 3 or 4 months back of how it was the offtake. Bottom line also is the customer's offtake of your products. If you're able to have customers keeping money with you without interest, but using 2 to 3 or sometimes 4 of your different products and services, they advocate you as a bank.
Then you know they're happy.
You know, and one final very important one is when you're able to charge a premium to your services. When clients see a value, they're not complaining. When you actually, we do a lot of things for free, but when you charge a premium or a higher rate or a higher fee for a certain service, and hundreds of thousands of your clients happy and not complaining, you know here you've actually hit the nail on the head.
We have another question. Please, if we can pass on the microphones. خلينا نبلش من وراء وبننتقل لعندك. سؤال تاني من عندك. تفضل.
Abdullah Al-Alami from the Saudi Chamber of Commerce Iqtisad magazine. Question to the gentleman from the bank. We're talking about smart cities. Unfortunately, hackers are becoming also smart. What are your plans to counterattack hackers who hack clients' accounts? Number 2, being a bank, what are your plans to provide for social responsibility for the government summit? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Hackers is very high on our agenda, extremely high. When it is discussed, it is talked, we spend and invest tens of millions of dollars to protect clients and also protect the reputation of the bank. We get a lot, alhamdulillah, a lot of successes and a lot of challenges, but also we're not only just spending money, we recruit the best and we employ the best corporations in the world. We are in a very close communication with even universities and also the state security departments in the UAE. So there is no effort being spared there. Social responsibility to the summit, we're here, we're a sponsor, we're partner. I don't like to use the word sponsor. We support all initiatives. We work very well with the government, not only in this. We issue a complete report on sustainability and corporate social responsibility for the bank of all activities we do in the year. It's not things that we only can put dirham value to it, but actual things that actually staff and people go and contribute their time, effort, and energy behind. I can explain it in detail separately.
I know I promised you that you will ask your question, but because it's ladies first, I'm going to let the lady ask the question first. Okay.
Thank you. We actually, as ladies, I mean, here we are all employees or government officials. So basically, sorry, it's just that I had a comment which I thought was quite important to at least view or at least sort of express the government side of the discussion. Actually, my name is Nariman Abdullah Kambar, and I'm from the Central Bank of the UAE, and in charge of consumer protection and customer service. So therefore, I thought at least whatever I will say would add a little bit of value to whatever has been discussed so far.
Of course.
Now, I thank both your speakers. Of course, Mr. Ala is a dear colleague and friend. First of all, I think in what you mentioned was that why should governments serve people? Because you said with banks, people can walk away. However, with governments, you don't. Actually, in many cases, it's the opposite. In certain ways that banks, clients, if they have liabilities, they can never walk away from the bank. So therefore, it's one of the things that, that's another issue. However, with the government, why the government has come up with this initiative? Because like we said, government employees are actually supposed to serve the country, serve the society, serve the people who are actually in the country anywhere they are living, whether citizens or business, partners or travelers, tourists, and of course, any residents. So here it becomes, that's why, in English, the word is public servant. So basically what we are talking about, that we are here to serve people. The other thing is that when you mentioned also, you asked that how can banks be of help in terms of the serving,
enabling smart government.
Enabling smart government and in overall, seeing how can they support the government. Just looking from the banking perspective, I would say the banks, the more transparent they become towards their customers in terms of, making sure that the customer understands what they are being served, what are their products, what are the things. Here at this end, the complaints of the clients becomes less who they approach us and actually complain against the banks. So this is one way that they can actually serve very well by being transparent, being forward, being helpful in terms of also in a society that most people are not that highly technologically sort of aware or savvy. Yes, we use a lot of gadgets and these things, but the general population, most people, whether citizens or whether expatriates, they are actually not very highly educated, and not, especially we are talking about not the high net worth individuals or clients, we are talking about
general public.
General, and especially the lower sort of, the ones who make the smaller sort of income, and they are actually, like I said, and that's the majority. Yes. So therefore, we ask here, actually, the government, the banks to be more transparent, more customer friendly, not, like I said, at the top things, but at the way down the bottom, and that way it actually would reduce the burden and the complaints against them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nariman, for your valuable input. معلش بس وعدته بسؤال خلينا ناخده برجع بمرق الميكروفون بس quickly اعملوا معروف لأن الوقت عم بيخلص. Okay, so quick questions.
My name is Obaid Al-Zabi. My question is from a holistic approach, actually, in the banking industry. So, from the, customer satisfaction approach, you need to satisfy the need of your customers. in a situation where the deposits yields or return is relatively little or small, do you have a schemes or saving schemes available to offer more options to your customer, such as build up or develops the fund industry? Can you shed more light, Ala, on this, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we do, not only as all banks do, and we do provide either in-house built ones or even introduce to international ones with a lot of controls and restrictions, because the objective here is to save or to protect the customer's asset before growing it. But we'll talk about it, happy to talk about it separately.
بس final comment, فينا نمرق الميكروفون to the first row. Final comment and then we wrap up because our time is over. Please, إذا فينا نمرق الميكروفون.
My name is Arif Saleh. I'm the Undersecretary of Ministry of Finance in Bahrain. The question of this session is, can government act like banks? You spoke about a lot of service in the banks, but I am going to answer, can government act like bank? The answer is yes. Absolutely. We'll do a lot of electronic transfer. We have point of sales. We have KPIs. We have transparency. We have adherence to international regulation. We are rated. So everything is there. We have to improve more and more the reward and punishment among employees. So government profession is not a job for life. This is the things that can bring more, and the KPIs and the program budgeting, rather instead of line budgeting that we do here in the Gulf. So everything is measured, the input is this and the output is this, and then efficiency and transparency, and even training and awareness, and make more the employee at the service of the people, rather than the people in the service of the employee.
MashaAllah, the results are showing in your area. So
معلش عذرني أنا هلا عرفتك لأنه التقينا قبل.
شكرا جزيلا.
عذرني. Well, we would have liked to continue the discussion, especially that I had more questions, but unfortunately our time is over. I thank you very much for being here with us today, and thank you for attending the session.
thank you, Nadine.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.